Dear Maya, I'm sorry I missed your call. I'll be home by evening. Save me a seat. The voice message was new. The number was blocked. The voice was her brother's. Maya froze in the dark hallway, phone pressed to her ear, the world narrowing to a single thread of sound. Aiden. The name tore through her like a bell. She hadn't heard it spoken in his own voice for 10 years, not since the day they lowered a casket into the ground and her father's shoulders folded in on themselves like a house in a storm. She replayed the message. The same warm cadence. That soft, unhurried chuckle at the end, as if he'd almost said her childhood nickname and caught himself. Save me a seat. It couldn't be. It simply could not be. The quiet house around her exhaled the shiver of late October. Old wood settling, the refrigerator humming, the distant whisper of wind running its fingers through maple leaves. A strip of lamplight slipped beneath the study door where her father sat every night at the same hour, wearing a sweater that had lost its color from too many winters, reading the same paragraph until his eyes glazed and the words lost their edges. Down the hall, her mother folded laundry with the precise tenderness of prayer, shirts and towels squared the way a nurse smooths a sheet, expression fixed in that neutral place where memory can't fully drown her. Maya replayed the message again. Then again, chasing it as if the vowels might disintegrate if she didn't hold them. 10 years. 10 years since the car went through the guardrail on the mountain pass in the rain. 10 years since the sheriff had stood on their porch with a hat in his hands and the storm still clinging to his coat. 10 years since a closed casket and a beige room at the funeral home, and lilies that made her nauseous with their sweetness. 10 years of birthdays marked by an extra place setting no one touched. She stepped into the study with the dazed carefulness of someone entering a chapel after hours. "Dad," she said. He looked up over his glasses. In them, the lamplight fractured into gold shards. "You're supposed to be at the clinic late tonight." "I came home early." Her voice was too steady. She swallowed. "I got a voicemail." He frowned, gentle lines deepening at his mouth. "From who?" She held out the phone like contraband. "Just listen." He pressed the phone to his ear, and Maya watched the change ripple across his face. It wasn't dramatic. It was smaller and more dangerous. A soft widening of the eyes, the muscles of the jaw holding too still. He didn't blink. He just listened. When it ended, he kept the phone there, holding the absence of sound as if the silence were part of the message. "Maya," he said quietly, handing it back. "That's not possible." "I know." Her breath shook. "But it's him." He took off his glasses. Without them, he looked younger and more breakable. "People make recordings," he said. "There are apps, scams. It said he'd be home by evening." He glanced at the grandfather clock in the hall. Its hands climbed towards 7 with patient indifference. "Evening," he repeated, as if the word itself were treacherous. Her mother appeared in the doorway, a neat stack of towels against her chest. "What's wrong?" Maya watched her father falter, then steady. He chose his words the way a surgeon chooses a path through tissue. Slow, precise, refusing to tremble. "We got a message," he said. "From Aiden's number. It was blocked," Maya corrected gently. "But it's his voice." Her mother's grip tightened. The towels bowed. "No," she said too quickly. "Don't do that. Not to me." "I'll play it," Maya whispered. They stood shoulder to shoulder in the hallway, 3 bodies braced against a 10-second wave. The house listened with them. The heating clicked. Somewhere outside, a dog barked and then thought better of it. The message unfurled, warm and familiar, and when it ended, Maya heard the rough sound escape her mother's throat, the sound grief makes when it grows new wings. "Save me a seat," her mother repeated, as if reading it off a wall only she could see. She pressed the towels to her chest like a shield. Someone's cruel. Maya opened her mouth, closed it again. Hysteria would be too easy. Denial, too. Under everything, a strange, steadying clarity rose in her. The absolute certainty that she was awake, and that the clock was real, and that the thin October light clinging to the windows was not a trick. She remembered the scar on Aiden's wrist, pale like a moon sliver, from the summer he fell out of the persimmon tree, the small hitch in his breath when he laughed too hard, the way his voice dropped on the last word when he told a secret. The message had carried that weight. A copy. Could borrow tone but not gravity. This felt like a voice that had not learned how to be dead. "I'm going to the porch," she said. Her father caught her sleeve. Maya, I just need air. She offered a half smile that dishonored the word and slipped the latch. Evening. Had fallen the particular shade of blue that belongs to old neighborhoods and porch bulbs and the first breaths of cold. The street smelled like damp leaves and distant chimney smoke. Across the way, Mr. Alvarez wrestled a trash can to the curb and lifted a hand in greeting without looking. A child's bike lay on its side near the mailbox, one pedal slowly turning. The world had the indecent audacity to go on. She sat on the top step and tucked her knees to her chest, the way she did when she was 14, and waiting for a boy who never came. At her back, the front door was a steady warmth. Her father's shadow moved behind the glass. From the kitchen, a spoon touched the edge of a mug. Small domestic sounds stitched the dark. At 7:12, the clock in the hall began to chime, and with the second bell she heard it. Shoes on pavement, unhurried, as if they belonged here. She stood too fast and the world tilted. A figure rounded the corner of the hedge, a tall young man in a navy jacket, a backpack slung over one shoulder. The porch light caught his hair and made a halo where it hit the scar at his wrist. He stopped at the foot of the steps and looked up at her, and the expression on his face, tender, apologetic, that lopsided smile that always arrived half a second late, struck her so hard she forgot how to breathe. "Hey, Mouse," he said. The nickname was a key in a lock. Her heart lurched in its cage. No one had called her that in a decade. Her father opened the door behind her, and the warm air rolled out like a welcome. He made a sound Maya had never heard from him before, a sound scraped up from the bottom of an old well. Her mother hovered, just behind, one hand on the doorframe as if the wood could anchor her to the world. The young man's eyes flicked to them and softened further. He lifted his free hand, palm out, helpless and gentle. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said. No one moved. The porch light hummed. Something inside the house beeped twice and stopped. A moth ticked against the glass lantern near the rail. "Aiden?" her mother said. It was not a question. It was a plea wrapped in a memory. He nodded once. Maya felt her hand lift of its own accord and touch his sleeve. Warm, solid. The fabric rasped under her fingers. Cheap canvas, a little damp from the evening air. "What is this?" her father whispered. "What have you done?" Aiden's gaze met his, and the apology in it deepened, but he did not step back. "I came home." Her mother made a small wounded noise and stepped forward and then back again, as if the air itself were a boundary she might disturb. "We buried you," she said. She said it the way people say addresses to orient themselves. "I know." His eyes didn't look away. "I wasn't there." Maya swallowed. "What do you mean?" He set the backpack down. The porch plank creaked, in that familiar tone that meant the nail at the edge was loose. The world lay itself out with excruciating detail. A spider taking down a strand of web between the railings, the distant thump of a basketball 3 houses over, the soft scratch of oak leaves along the walk. "I don't remember all of it," he said. "Just the rain, the guardrail, then water, a hospital that smelled like bleach and oranges, a small town where no one asked the right questions, a name that wasn't mine." His mouth trembled, once and then steadied. "I started remembering in pieces. The way you laugh when you're trying not to cry, Mom. Dad, your keys in the bowl by the door. The song the ice cream truck plays wrong every summer. I kept thinking, if I call, will you hang up? If I come, will you shut the door?" Her mother's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled with a suddenness that startled even her, as if another person inside had knocked them loose. Her father stood without moving, and yet something enormous shifted inside his restraint, his posture opening by degrees, the space around him bending to let breath in for the first time in years. "How?" Maya asked, because logic, even wounded, was still hers to tend. There was a body. Aiden's eyes softened in that old way. "There was a casket," he said gently. "You didn't want to see." The night tipped and steadied again. Maya remembered the way the funeral director had said it. Softly, professionally, it's better to remember him as he was. She'd been 17 and shaking, and she had agreed because adults had told her to. She felt the cold of that. Room again. The lilies, the carpet, the cheap plastic cups of water, the way grief had made all sound muffled and far away. She tasted the metal of guilt. "Come inside," their father said, voice rough. If this is real, you don't stand in the cold. It's real, Aiden said. I promise. He lifted the backpack and mounted the steps. At the threshold, he paused and looked at the worn scuff in the paint where the baseball skidded the year he tried to throw it through the mail slot. He touched the mark with 2 fingers, reverent, and then stepped in. Warmth wrapped them. The house seemed to shrink and expand at once, new air trying on old rooms. Aiden stood in the foyer and turned slowly, as if taking inventory of everything that had once carried him. The umbrella stand with the crack at the base, the photograph of the 3 of them at the lake. Maya sunburned and furious, Aiden laughing at her hat, their father mid-blink, and the small brass bell on the side table that their mother tapped each night before dinner without ever noticing she did. Her mother reached out at last and pressed her palm to his cheek. He leaned into it as if he'd been waiting 10 years for that exact wait. She began to cry again, quietly, and he bent and pressed his forehead to hers. And the room exhaled. Maya realized she had been holding her breath since the message began. Save me a seat, she whispered, not trusting her voice with anything larger. Aiden smiled, the old, exasperating, wonderful smile that arrived late and lit the whole face from within. Always, he said. Later, the questions would come like rain. The doctor and Maya would tug at the knots, records, dates, the name he'd used, the town that hid him or simply misfiled him, the way the world lets people slip through. Later, the mystery would unfurl in threads. A clinic with tired staff, a storm that washed away a dozen answers, a stranger's wallet found near a wreck, a bureaucratic shuffle that made a tragedy neat on paper. But in that first hour, under that old lamp with its amber halo, with her mother's hand still resting on Aiden's sleeve and her father's breath making new paths in his chest, the facts could wait. Maya took her brother's backpack and set it by the stairs, next to a pair of shoes that had waited 10 years without knowing it. A clock ticked from room to room, taking its time. In the kitchen, water reached a boil and then cooled, forgotten. The house listened and learned again, the shape of 4 people breathing. Outside, the wind moved through the maples and went on. Inside, and for the first time in a decade, the word home arrived and stayed. The night unfolded like a fragile dream. Aiden sat at the old wooden table, the one scarred with knife marks from rushed school projects and burns from hot pans. Maya watched him the way people watch a fire, drawn in, unable to look away, fearful it might vanish if she blinked too long. Her mother hovered, filling a plate with stew, spooning it carefully as if food could anchor a ghost. Aiden smiled faintly, thanked her, and ate as if he had never been gone. The scrape of spoon against ceramic, the steam curling toward the ceiling, ordinary sounds that now felt extraordinary. Maya caught herself memorizing every detail. His laugh when the spoon was too hot, the way he tucked his leg under his chair, the same way he did when he was 17. His hair had grown darker, threaded with lines of shadow that hadn't been there before. Their father stayed quiet, hands folded, eyes sharp as knives. He asked no questions, but the silence brimmed with them. Finally, he spoke. Where have you been? Aiden lowered his spoon. His gaze flickered toward the window, where the glass reflected the room like a painting. I told you, a small town. I don't know the name. I woke up in a clinic. They said I'd been found on the roadside. That's not possible, Maya whispered. We buried you. Aiden's eyes softened, full of something she couldn't name. You buried someone. But it wasn't me. The room held its breath. Her mother trembled, pressing a hand to her lips. Why didn't you come back sooner? Aiden hesitated. His fingers tapped once against the table. I didn't remember, not at first. My head, it was like pieces of a puzzle scattered in the dark. Faces, names, sounds, they came back slowly. And when I finally knew who I was, I didn't know if anyone would want me anymore. Her father's voice was iron. We wanted you every day. Silence swelled. Again. The clock ticked loudly, indifferent to miracles. Later, Maya climbed the stairs, pausing at the landing. She heard her parents whispering in the kitchen, her mother crying softly, her father's words sharp with disbelief. Aiden's footsteps moved across the guest room, steady and human. She pressed her hand to the wall, half expecting it to be cold. Her phone buzzed on her nightstand. A message, unknown number. Thank you for saving me a seat. Her stomach tightened. She glanced toward the guest room. His bag sat by the door, the zipper half open. Something about the message felt different, more deliberate than the voicemail. Like he wanted her to know he was really here. Sleep didn't come. She lay awake, listening to the new rhythm of the house. The faint creak of the floorboards where he moved. The soft thump of the bathroom door. Ordinary noises, yet unreal in their existence. By morning, the house was alive in a way it hadn't been for years. Her mother hummed while making breakfast. Her father left for work earlier than usual, but not before squeezing Aiden's shoulder once, awkwardly, as if afraid to break him. At school, Maya drifted through her shift at the clinic, words catching in her throat whenever coworkers asked if she was okay. How could she explain? How could anyone believe her? That evening, Aiden met her on the porch. "Want a walk?" he asked. They strolled down Maple Lane, the leaves burning orange and red under the streetlights. Neighbors peered through curtains, whispers spreading faster than the wind. A boy returned home after 10 years. It was a story too big to hide. Doe. "You remember everything now?" Maya asked carefully. Aiden stuffed his hands in his pockets. "Not everything. Just enough. Enough to know what? That I belong here." She searched his face. It was Aiden. His voice, his mannerisms, even the scar on his wrist from climbing the persimmon tree. But there was something else, too. A distance in his eyes, as though part of him still lived in a place she couldn't reach. They stopped at the old playground where the swing still squeaked in the wind. He sat down, chains groaning under his weight. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" he asked. Maya shook her head. "No. This is my life. It's always been mine." He smiled faintly. "Mine ended once. Maybe that's why it feels different now." The words chilled her, though his voice was calm. She wanted to press him, to demand answers. But instead, she sat beside him, letting the chains creak in the night. When they returned home, their father was waiting on the porch. His jaw was tight, his eyes colder than the air. "I called the county coroner," he said. "The body was identified through dental records. They don't make mistakes like that." Aiden's expression didn't falter. "Maybe they did. Their..." Father's voice cracked. "Don't play games with us." "I'm not," Aiden said softly. "I don't know how it happened. All I know is, I'm here now." Their father turned away, shaking his head. Maya felt the crack widening in the family, the sharp edges of doubt cutting through the fragile joy. That night, she dreamed of water, rushing over steel, headlights vanishing into darkness, and a voice whispering, "Save me a seat." When she woke, her phone buzzed again. Another message from the blocked number. "Don't let him leave again." By the third day, the house felt heavier. Not haunted exactly, but altered, as though every wall had shifted slightly to make room for the boy who should have stayed gone. The rhythm of their lives had been disrupted. Meals were louder, footsteps echoed differently. Even the air smelled faintly of cologne that hadn't lingered there in a decade. Maya studied her brother across the breakfast table. He spread jam over toast the way he always had, messily, leaving thick clumps near the crust. The sight was so familiar that for a moment her heart ached with pure joy. But then the ache sharpened, because every detail he remembered only deepened. The question, how? Her father broke the silence. "Where exactly were you, Aiden?" Aiden sipped his coffee, his gaze drifting toward the window. "A town north of here, small, quiet. I don't remember its name. I woke up in a clinic, and they told me someone had found me on the roadside." "You died," her father said flatly. "I saw you in that coffin. Then you saw someone else?" Aiden replied, calm but firm. "Because I'm here." Her mother's hand trembled as she set down her fork. "Why didn't you come back sooner?" "I didn't remember who I was," he admitted. "It was like living in fog. Faces, names. They came back slowly. By the time I knew, I didn't know if any of you would want me anymore." Her father's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Later, Maya found him in the garage, sanding a piece of wood furiously. Sawdust clung to his sweater like frost. "He knows too much," he muttered without looking up. "He is Aiden," Maya whispered, though the words felt uncertain. "Or he's someone who studied Aiden." Her father's voice was steel. "Grief makes us blind. Don't let it blind you." Maya wanted to argue, but doubt had already taken root. That evening, a knock came at the door. Sheriff Callahan stood on the porch, hat in hand, his weathered face grim. The same man who had delivered the news of Aiden's death 10 years ago. I heard. He said simply. Mind if I see him? Inside, Aiden rose from the couch, smiling politely. Sheriff? Been a long time. The old man stared. You look just like him? I am him, Aiden said softly. Callahan's eyes narrowed. Your body was pulled from the wreck. I signed the papers myself. Then you signed for the wrong boy? Aiden replied. For a long moment, the sheriff just studied him. Then he shook his head. Miracles don't come cheap. Someone's hiding something. When he left, the house sank into silence. That night, Maya's phone buzzed on her nightstand. Another blocked message. Don't let him leave again. Her hands shook. She stared at the guest room door across the hall, where Aiden's shadow shifted under the crack of light. Sleep came in fragments. She dreamed of headlights swallowed by water, of a voice whispering, Save me a seat. The next morning, she confronted him. Where were you last night? He looked puzzled. In bed. I heard you walking. He smiled faintly. You always were a light sleeper. Stop joking, Maya snapped. Tell me the truth. Are you really my brother? Aiden's face softened. Maya, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because I belong with you. Isn't that enough? Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe. She wanted her brother back more than anything, but the doubt wouldn't let go. That evening, her father buried himself in old papers. Coroner reports, dental records, newspaper clippings. His hands shook as he shoved them into piles. I don't know what we've let in, he said hoarsely. But it isn't ours. Maya's chest ached. What if you're wrong? What if it really is him? Her father's eyes glistened with something she had never seen before. Fear. Then why does it feel like we're being watched? The tension in the Hale household coiled tighter with each passing day. Aiden moved easily through their rooms, his presence as natural as breath, yet each step deepened the fracture between belief and suspicion. Their mother clung to him, her hands brushing his arm as if to anchor him here. Their father barely spoke, his silence sharpened into something brittle. And Maya hovered between them, caught in the undertow of both wonder and dread. One evening, she found herself on the porch with Aiden. The crickets hummed in the cool air. The street lamps flickered against the quiet road. He leaned on the railing, staring into the darkness beyond. Do you remember everything now? She asked, her voice a whisper, his lips curved in a faint smile. Enough to know what? That I was meant to come back. The words should have soothed her, but instead they rattled through her chest like stones in a jar. That night, the phone rang, an old landline they rarely used anymore. Her mother answered, her voice faltering. Hello? Silence. Then, faintly, save me a seat. Her mother dropped the receiver as though it burned. Maya snatched it up, pressing it to her ear. Who is this? But the line was already dead. The family gathered in the kitchen, the air thick with fear. Her father's hands were fists against the table. That voice. That was him. The same as the night we buried him. Aiden stood at the edge of the room, his expression unreadable. I didn't call. I was here. No, her father said, his voice breaking. My son was here, but you... He stopped himself, staring at Aiden as though trying to see beneath his skin. For the first time, Aiden's calm cracked. I'm not pretending, he said sharply. I'm here. Isn't that what matters? Her mother clutched her chest. You sound like him. You look like him. But the dead don't just walk home. The house trembled with silence. Later, Maya crept into the guest room. Aiden's duffel bag sat half-zipped on the floor. She knelt, her fingers trembling as she pulled it open. Inside were clothes, ordinary things. But tucked into a side pocket was something else, a folded piece of paper, yellowed and fragile. She opened it slowly. Dear Maya, I'm sorry I left you alone. Please save me a seat. Love, Aiden. Her chest constricted. The handwriting was his. She remembered it, every loop and slant, every uneven line. But the date at the bottom was wrong. It was dated last month. Her breath caught. She nearly dropped. The paper, when she felt the weight of eyes on her. Aiden stood in the doorway. You weren't supposed to see that, he said softly. Her throat tightened. How could you have written this? You've been gone 10 years. He stepped closer, his expression both tender and haunted. because time didn't pass the same way for me. One moment I was gone. The next, I woke up, and all I wanted was to come back. But we buried you, she whispered. He crouched in front of her, his eyes burning with something too deep to name. Maybe we buried the wrong version of me. Maybe I was meant to walk back through. Tears blurred her vision. She wanted to touch him, to believe him, but the fear lodged too deep. Then who keeps sending me the messages? Who called tonight? Aiden's jaw tightened. Maybe the part of me that didn't make it back. The words sent a chill through her bones. The next day, the sheriff returned. He stood in their kitchen, hat in hand, his eyes heavy. I pulled that car from the river myself, he said. I saw the body. If you're him, then what did I bury? Aiden's shoulders sagged. I don't know. Until I do, the sheriff said, voice firm. You stay put. No leaving town. Her father agreed instantly. Her mother protested, but weakly. That night, Maya lay awake, listening to the house breathe. At some point, she rose, drawn to the guest room. The door creaked open. Aiden sat on the bed, staring out the window. He didn't turn when she entered. Do you believe me? He asked quietly. She hesitated. I don't know. He looked at her then, his face breaking with something raw. I'm your brother, Maya. Maybe not the same as before, but I'm yours. Don't let them take that away. Her eyes burned with tears. I don't know what you are. His hand trembled as he reached for hers. Then let me prove it. Don't give up on me yet. And in that fragile moment, she almost believed. Almost. The weeks that followed blurred into uneasy routine. Neighbors whispered, the sheriff circled, and the family moved through their days like tightrope walkers above an abyss. Aiden remained, eating at their table, laughing in the halls, standing in the photographs that once only held absence. But sometimes late at night, Maya still heard it. The ring of the old phone, the whisper on the line, save me a seat. And each time she would look across the hall where her brother slept soundly, his shadow stretching long across the floor,